On the bustling outskirts of Mexico, where narrow streets intertwine like threads of worn fabric, there is a small house with peeling walls. It is there that Clara, a young woman with soft eyes and a shy smile, leads an existence that looks more like a sentence than a life. Every morning, as the sun rises lazily over the tin roofs, Clara wakes up with a sigh, knowing that the day that awaits her will be similar to the previous one, an endless succession of thankless tasks under the sharp gaze of her mother-in-law, Dona Matilda. Clara didn't always live like this. Orphaned from a young age, she grew up with a burning dream of one day having her own family, a warm home where love and understanding would reign. This dream seemed to have come true when she met Lucas, a young man with a charming smile and sparkling eyes. Their love was like a shooting star, shining brightly but briefly, before reality took over. The marriage, which should have been the start of a new happy life, quickly turned into a golden trap. Clara found herself living under the same roof as her stepmother, Dona Matilda, a woman whose bitterness seemed to have corroded every trace of kindness. From the first day, Dona Matilda made Clara understand that she was not welcome, treating her more like a servant than her son's wife. "This is what you deserve, little orphan," Dona Matilda often hisses through her teeth, her eyes flashing with contempt. These words, like knives, sink deep into Clara's heart, reviving the wounds of her past. Every day, she fights against the despair that threatens to engulf her, desperately clinging to the scraps of happiness she can glean. Clara's routine is a never-ending ballet of household chores. She gets up before dawn, prepares breakfast for the household, cleans every corner of the house until it shines, washes and irons the laundry with mechanical precision. His hands, once soft, are now rough and chapped, silent witnesses to his incessant labor. Despite the harshness of her life, Clara retains an innate goodness that seems to defy all logic. She still finds the strength to help neighbors in need, offering a comforting smile to an overwhelmed mother or some food to a lonely old man. These small acts of kindness are like lifelines she clings to, reminders that compassion can survive even the harshest conditions. Clara's rare moments of respite come when Lucas is at home. Her husband, although kind, seems caught between two fires: love for his wife and loyalty to his domineering mother. He sometimes tries to defend Clara, but his attempts are weak and quickly stifled by Dona Matilda's icy stares. Clara sees the guilt in Lucas's eyes, but she doesn't blame him. She understands the complexity of her situation, even if it doesn't make her own existence any easier. The house itself seems to reflect the tension that reigns there. The walls, although clean thanks to Clara's incessant efforts, seem to ooze an oppressive atmosphere. The drawn curtains filter the sunlight, creating a perpetual gloom that seems to swallow up all joy. In this austere setting, Clara feels like a ghost, a barely tolerated presence, invisible to the eyes of those who should love her. Yet, despite adversity, Clara finds small moments of happiness in the simplest things. The morning song of birds becomes a symphony of hope. The smell of freshly brewed coffee, a promise of comfort. And Lucas' rare smiles, rays of sunshine piercing the clouds of his life. These moments, as fleeting as they are, nourish the flame of hope that still burns within her. In the secret of her heart, Clara harbors a dream, a vision of a better future. She sometimes imagines herself far from this stifling home, living a life where she would be valued and loved for who she is. But this dream seems as inaccessible as the stars that shine in the night sky of Mexico. The days follow one another and are similar, forming an endless cycle of tasks and humiliations. Clara develops a quiet resilience, an inner strength that sustains her in the face of daily adversity. She learns to find beauty in the smallest details, the way the light dances on the freshly polished floor, the delicate scent of the flowers she secretly grows in a corner of the garden, the comforting texture of the bread she kneaded every morning. Despite everything, loneliness weighs heavily on his shoulders. Clara often feels isolated, cut off from the outside world by the walls of her gilded prison. The rare times she goes out to go shopping, she observes with envy the groups of friends laughing together, the couples holding hands, the families sharing moments of complicity. These ordinary scenes seem to her to be mirages of a life that she will perhaps never know. At night, when the house is finally silent and Dona Matilda has retired to her room, Clara finds a little peace. Sitting by the window, she looks out at the city lights in the distance, imagining the lives that go on behind each illuminated window. It is in these quiet moments that she allows herself to dream, to remember the hopeful young girl she once was. Sometimes, Clara wonders what her parents, of whom she only has vague memories, would think of her current life. Would they have been disappointed to see her accept such a situation? Or would they understand his resignation, born of a desperate desire to belong? These unanswered questions haunt her, fueling both her melancholy and her determination to endure. Despite everything, a little voice deep inside her whispers that this situation cannot last forever. That something, one day, will have to change. This conviction, as fragile as it may be, is like a seed planted in his heart, waiting for the right moment to germinate and flower. And this is how Clara continues, day after day, to navigate this life of servitude. She maintains her silent dignity, her unwavering goodness, like a silent challenge to the universe. Without knowing it, she is preparing for a change that is fast approaching, a turning point that will upend her life in ways she could never have imagined. Because destiny, in its infinite wisdom, sometimes prepares surprises for those who have the courage to continue to hope, even in the darkest moments. And for Clara, this transformative moment is about to arrive, bringing with it the promise of a new chapter in her life, one filled with unexpected possibilities and discoveries about herself that she never would have known. Believed possible. The midday sun bathed Mexico City in its bright light, transforming the bustling streets into a kaleidoscope of color and movement. In the small suburban house where Clara led her routine life, the day seemed to be shaping up like any other. With her hands immersed in the soapy water, she mechanically cleaned the breakfast dishes, her mind wandering towards distant and inaccessible dreams. Suddenly, the sound of a powerful engine broke the surrounding monotony. Clara, intrigued, glanced out the kitchen window. An unexpected sight presented itself to his eyes. A luxurious car, shiny black, had just stopped in front of the house. The vehicle seemed completely out of place in this modest neighborhood, immediately attracting the attention of curious neighbors who began to gather discreetly. Clara's heart raced when she saw the door open. A man emerged, tall and elegant, dressed in a tailored suit that screamed opulence and refinement. His neatly styled graying hair and confident walk exuded an aura of confidence and power. Clara felt a strange sensation take over her, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The man walked towards the house with a determined step. Clara, as if hypnotized, quickly wiped her hands on her apron and rushed towards the front door. She opened it just as the stranger was about to knock. "Hello, miss," he said in a deep, warm voice. "I'm looking for Clara. Is this here?" Clara, surprised to hear her name in the mouth of this stranger, stammered an affirmative response. "Yes, it's me. What can I do for you, sir?" The man smiled, revealing perfectly white teeth. "My name is Enrique Montenegro. I have some important information to share with you. May I come in for a moment?" Clara hesitated. Dona Matilda did not like unexpected visits, and even less so strangers in her house. But something in this man's eyes, a sincerity mixed with kindness, pushed her to acquiesce. "Of course, please come in," she said, stepping aside to let him pass. Enrique had barely crossed the threshold when Dona Matilda appeared, attracted by the noise of the conversation. His face, usually frozen in an expression of disapproval, instantly transformed at the sight of the distinguished visitor. "Oh, hello sir," she simpered, smoothing out her dress nervously. "What a surprise. I am Dona Matilda, the mistress of the house. What does the honor of your visit deserve to us?" Enrique turned to her with a polite but distant smile. "Hello, I'm here to speak to Clara, if I may." Dona Matilda's face tightened slightly, but she maintained her forced smile. Of course. Clara, offer our guest a coffee." Clara was about to obey mechanically, but Enrique stopped her with a gesture. "That won't be necessary, thank you." "Clara, could we speak in private?" A heavy silence fell over the room. Dona Matilda, visibly upset, hesitated before reluctantly giving in. "You can use the living room," she said, her lips pursed. Once alone, Enrique took a seat on the worn sofa, inviting Clara to sit across from him. She obeyed, hands trembling, 1,000 questions swirling in her mind. "Clara," Enrique began, his voice full of gravity, "what I am going to tell you will undoubtedly upset you. But I ask you to listen to me until the end." He paused, seeming to search for words. "I knew your parents, Clara. We were close friends, a long time ago." Clara's heart skipped a beat. His parents. This man knew his parents. She who only had vague memories of them, fragments of images and sensations that faded with time. Before their tragic deaths, Enrique continued, his voice slightly husky with emotion, "They gave me a mission. They gave me a letter, with instructions to give it to you when the time was right. Moment, Clara, it's today." From an inside pocket of his jacket, he took out an envelope yellowed with age. Clara stared at it, unable to move, as if the envelope was a sacred object that she did not dare touch. "Take it," Enrique said softly. "It belongs to you. It contains truths about your past, about your heritage." With a trembling hand, Clara grabbed the envelope. She could feel the weight of the years, of the secrets she held. "Why now?" she whispered, finally daring to look up at Enrique. The man's gaze became distant. "Your parents were extraordinary people, Clara. Visionary, brilliant, but also profoundly good. They wanted to protect you, to give you the chance to grow up away from the pressures and responsibilities that could have weighed on you. But they also wanted to ensure that you may know the truth when the time comes." Clara gently caressed the envelope, feeling under her fingers the contours of a world she had never known. "What truth?" she asked under her breath. Enrique leaned forward, his eyes staring into Clara's. "Your parents were pioneers in technology, Clara. They co-founded a company that is now one of the largest in the world. And you, as their sole heir, are the owner of a considerable fortune." The world seemed to stop around Clara. Enrique's words echoed in her head, but she struggled to make sense of them. Fortune, heiress. These concepts seemed to belong to another world, a world from which she had always been excluded. I don't understand," she stammered, clutching the envelope to her chest as if to protect herself from this reality that was too big for her. Enrique smiles compassionately. "I know this is a lot to take in, Clara. That's why I'm here. To guide you, to help you understand your heritage and make the decisions you need to make." At that moment, the door to the living room opened suddenly. Dona Matilda, who had obviously been listening at the door, burst into the room, her face contorted with a mixture of shock and lust. "A fortune? Clara," she exclaimed, incredulous. Then, turning to Enrique with a honeyed smile, she added, "But it's wonderful. Our dear Clara, an heiress. We are her family, you know. We welcomed her, fed her, housed her." Enrique stood up slowly, his gaze hardening imperceptibly. "Madam," he said firmly, "this is a private matter between Clara and me. I would ask you to leave us alone." Dona Matilda, unaccustomed to being put in her place in this way, remained speechless for a moment before retreating, not without giving Clara a meaningful look. Once alone again, Enrique turned to Clara, who seemed lost in thought. "Clara," he said softly, "I know this is all overwhelming. But you are not alone. I am here to help you navigate this new reality." Clara looked up at him, tears glistening at the corners of her eyelids. "For what?" she asked simply. "Why did you let me live like this, if I had all that?" Enrique sat down next to her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Your parents wanted to protect you, Clara. They feared that wealth and power would corrupt your innocence, your natural goodness. They wanted you to develop your own strength, your own character, away from the influences that fortune might have attracted." He paused, searching for words. "But they would never have wanted you to suffer. If they had known. Well, what matters now is the future. You have the power to change your life, Clara. To make your dreams come true, to help others as you always wanted." Clara looked at the envelope in her hands, then at Enrique. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope ignite within her. "And now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Enrique stood up, holding out his hand. "Now, Clara, it's up to you. Do you want to discover who you really are? Are you ready to embrace your heritage and all that it entails?" Clara hesitated for a moment, her gaze going from Enrique's outstretched hand to the door behind which she knew that Dona Matilda was waiting, eager to know what would happen next. Then, taking a deep breath, She grabbed Enrique's hand and stood up. "Yes," she said, a new determination in her voice. "I'm ready." As they headed toward the exit, Clara felt that each step took her further away from her life of servitude and closer to a future she never dared to imagine. With the envelope clutched to her heart, she crossed the threshold of the house, leaving behind the weight of her years of silent suffering. Outside, the sun seemed to shine brighter, as if to welcome this new beginning. As she got into Enrique's luxurious car, Clara took one last look at the little house that had been her prison. She didn't know what the future held for her, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had the power to shape it. The car took off, carrying Clara towards her new life, towards revelations which would not only transform her existence, but also allow her to discover the strength and potential which had always lain dormant within her, waiting for the right moment to blossom. Enrique's car sped through the streets of Mexico, leaving behind the modest neighborhood where Clara had spent so many years. Sitting on the soft leather bench, Clara still clutched the envelope to her, like a talisman. His mind whirled, trying to process the revelations of the last few hours. "Where are we going?" she asked shyly, finally daring to break the silence. Enrique smiles at him in the rearview mirror. "In a place where you can read your parents' letter in peace. A safe place, away from prying eyes." Soon the car pulled into the driveway of a sleek, modern building. Clara followed Enrique to a private elevator which took them directly to a large apartment on the top floor. "Welcome to my personal office," Enrique announced as he opened the door. "You will be left alone here to discover your heritage." Clara entered a bright space, with walls decorated with works of contemporary art. Large floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city. Everything here exuded luxury and refinement, a world light years from the one she had known until then. Enrique guided her to a comfortable leather armchair. "Take your time, Clara. I'll be in the next room if you need anything." Once alone, Clara stared at the envelope, her heart beating. With trembling fingers, she broke the seal and took out several sheets of paper covered in fine, elegant writing. She took a deep breath and began to read. "Our dear Clara, if you are reading these lines, it is because the time has come for you to know the truth about your heritage. We are your parents, Maria and Joao, and even if we are no longer physically present at your side, know that our love for you is eternal and transcends time and space. We must start by asking you for forgiveness. Sorry for leaving you so soon, sorry for the years of loneliness and unanswered questions you had to endure. Believe us, every day away from you was torture, but we had our reasons, which we hope you understand. Clara, you are the heir to an extraordinary legacy. Your father and I were pioneers in the field of technology. We founded a company, Technova, which is today one of the largest in the world in the artificial intelligence and robotics sector. Our work has revolutionized many aspects of daily life, from medicine to education to the environment. But with that success came immense power, and as you may know, power can be as dangerous as it is seductive. We saw people change around us, becoming greedy, losing sight of what was truly important. That's why we made the hardest decision of our lives, to keep you away from all of this. We wanted you to grow up away from the spotlight, to develop your own personality, your own values, without being influenced by wealth or social status. We wanted you to know the value of work, of empathy, of perseverance. And from what Enrique has told us over the years, you have developed all these qualities and much more. Today, you are the legal heir to Technova and all the fortune associated with it. That's billions of dollars, properties around the world, and most importantly, the responsibility to guide a company that has the power to shape the future. But that's not all. Our greatest pride, our greatest achievement, is you, Clara. The person you have become, despite the trials, despite the adversity. Your kindness, your resilience, your courage, these are the true treasures that we bequeath to you. We know that these revelations will turn your life upside down. This is why we asked Enrique, our dearest and most faithful friend, to guide you through this transition. You can trust him completely. It will help you understand the workings of the business, manage your new financial situation, and face the challenges that await you. Clara, our beloved daughter, you now have the power to make all your dreams come true, to help those in need, to make a real difference in this world. Use this power with wisdom and compassion. Never forget where you come from, the lessons that life has taught you. It is this experience, combined with your pure heart, that will make you a force for positive change in this world. We are so proud of you, and we know that you will make choices that will honor our memory and, more importantly, that will be true to your own values. With all our love, forever and ever, Mom and Dad. Tears flowed freely down Clara's cheeks as she reread the letter a second, then a third time. Every word seemed to resonate within her, filling a void she hadn't even realized she had been carrying within her all these years. She remained like that, motionless, for what seemed like hours, slowly assimilating the significance of these revelations. His whole life suddenly took on a new meaning. The years of loneliness, of hard work, of suppressed dreams, all of it had shaped the person she had become, the person her parents hoped she would become. When Enrique returned slowly to the room, he found Clara standing in front of the bay window, contemplating the city that stretched out at her feet. She turned to him, her eyes shining with new determination. "I'm ready," she said simply. Enrique nodded with a kind smile. "I knew you would be, Clara. Your parents would be so proud to see you like this. Now let me explain in more detail what all this entails." They settled into a lounge area, and Enrique began to unwind the thread of his heritage in front of Clara. He told him about Technova, its revolutionary innovations, its global impact. He explained to him the structure of the company, the responsibilities that awaited him as a majority shareholder. "Of course," he added, "you don't have to take an active part in running the business immediately. You can take the time to learn, to train yourself. The important thing is that you understood the extent of your potential influence." Clara listened attentively, asking pertinent questions that pleasantly surprised Enrique. Despite her lack of formal education, she demonstrated a keen intelligence and a quick understanding of the issues. "What about money?" she asked shyly, as if the word itself was too big for her. Enrique smiles. "Your personal wealth is considerable, Clara. You will never have to worry about the financial side of your life again. But more importantly, you have the means to make a real difference in the world." He then spoke to her about the charitable foundations created by her parents, the philanthropic projects in progress, and the endless possibilities available to her to help others. As the conversation progressed, Clara felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension growing within her. The world she had known until then suddenly seemed so small, so limited. The possibilities that opened up before her were both intoxicating and terrifying. "I don't know if I'm up to it," she finally whispered, expressing the fear that was beginning to dawn on her. Enrique placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Clara, your parents knew exactly what they were doing in entrusting you with this inheritance. They saw in you the strength, integrity, and compassion necessary to handle this responsibility. And from what I have observed, they were absolutely right." Clara nodded slowly, drawing comfort from these words. "What should I do now?" she asked, ready to face this new chapter in her life. "To begin with," replied Enrique, "we will settle you in a safe and comfortable place. You will need time to assimilate all this, to think about what you want to do with this inheritance. Then we will slowly begin to introduce you in the world of Technova, at your own pace." Clara nodded, grateful for this gradual approach. Suddenly a thought struck her. "Lucas," she said. "I need to talk to Lucas." Enrique understood immediately. "Of course. Your husband needs to know about the situation. But Clara, be careful. People tend to change when money is involved. Watch his reactions carefully." Clara felt her heart tighten at the thought. Lucas had always been kind to her, but he had also been weak in front of his mother. How would he react to this new reality? "And Dona Matilda?" she asked, a hint of worry in her voice. Enrique's face hardened slightly. "Don't worry about her. We'll make sure she can't interfere with your new life. You're free now, Clara. Free to choose who you want in your life." These words resonated in Clara like a promise of the future. For the first time in her life, she had the power to shape her destiny, to choose her path. As she looked out the window again, watching the sun begin to set over Mexico, Clara felt a new strength arise within her. His parents' legacy was not just financial or material. It was a legacy of courage, love, and endless possibilities. "I'm ready," she repeated, this time with unwavering conviction in her voice. "I am ready to honor the memory of my parents, to make a difference in this world." Enrique smiled, seeing in Clara's eyes the spark of determination that he had so often admired in his parents. "So, Clara," he said, holding out his hand, "welcome to your new life. The journey has only just begun." Clara took his hand, feeling that she was crossing an invisible threshold. Behind her, she left a life of servitude and limitations. Before her opened a world of possibilities, challenges and opportunities. And deep inside, she knew that she was ready to face them, strong in the love of her parents and the lessons that life had taught her. The sun disappeared over the horizon, marking the end of a day that had changed everything. For Clara, it was the beginning of a new era, an era where she could finally become the person she was destined to be. The sun was rising over Mexico City, bathing the city in a golden light that seemed to promise a new beginning. For Clara, standing in front of the mirror of her luxury hotel room, this morning marked much more than just a sunrise. It was the dawn of a new life, a life she struggled to recognize as her own. The events of the past few days swirled through his mind. Enrique's unexpected visit, the letter from her parents, the revelations about her heritage. All of this seemed to belong to a dream from which she could not wake up. Yet the reality of her situation caught up with her at every turn, whether through the luxury of her suite or through Enrique's incessant calls to arrange her introduction into the world of Technova. But in the midst of this whirlwind, one thought persisted, a knot she had to undo before she could truly move forward. She had to talk to Lucas and confront Dona Matilda. "Are you sure you want to go alone?" Enrique asked for the umpteenth time as they stood in the hotel lobby. Clara nodded determinedly. "This is something I have to do for myself, Enrique. This is my life, my past. I have to face it." Enrique sighed but nodded. "I understand. But remember, you're not alone anymore. If you have any problems, call me." Clara smiled at him, grateful for his support. Then, taking a deep breath, she left the hotel and got into the taxi that was waiting for her. The journey to his old home seemed both endless and too short. Each familiar street awakened memories in her, some painful, others tinged with a new perspective in light of her recent discoveries. When the taxi stopped in front of the small house she had left a few days earlier, Clara felt her heart speed up. Nothing had changed on the outside, and yet everything was different. She knocked on the door, her hands shaking slightly. It was Lucas who opened the door, his face changing from surprise to a mixture of relief and concern. "Clara," he exclaimed, taking her in his arms. "Where have you been? We were so worried." Clara stiffened slightly in his embrace, suddenly realizing how far she had strayed from this life in such a short time. "Lucas," she said softly, extricating herself from his arms, "we need to talk. Is your mother there?" As if in response to his question, Dona Matilda's shrill voice rang out from inside the house. "Who is it, Lucas? Is it that ungrateful Clara who finally deigns to come back?" Clara felt a wave of anger rise within her, an emotion she had always repressed before. But today things were going to be different. She entered the house, Lucas at her heels, and headed straight towards the living room where Dona Matilda was sitting in her usual armchair. "Ah, here you are finally," cried Dona Matilda, her face twisted with a mixture of contempt and eager curiosity. "So, what do you have to tell us? This distinguished gentleman let us understand that you had suddenly become rich. Is this true, or was it just another one of your pitiful illusions?" Clara took a deep breath, drawing on the new strength she had discovered within herself. "It's not an illusion, Dona Matilda. It's the truth. My parents left me a legacy, an important legacy." She turned to Lucas, who was looking at her with wide eyes. "Lucas, I'm sorry I didn't talk to you sooner. I needed time to figure out what was happening to me myself." Lucas approached her, taking her hands in his. "Clara, it doesn't matter about the money. I'm just happy you're back. I love you, you know that." These words, which should have comforted her, only accentuated the discomfort that Clara felt. She gently removed her hands. "Lucas, things have changed. I'm not the same person anymore." Dona Matilda abruptly got up from her chair. "What are you talking about, you little fool? Do you think that a few days and a little money can change who you are? You remain the same insignificant orphan that we were kind enough to welcome." Clara felt something inside her break. All these years of submission, of silence, suddenly exploded in a wave of cold and controlled anger. "Enough," she said in a firm voice that surprised everyone, including herself. "I have had enough of your insults, of your contempt. You have never had the slightest kindness towards me. You have treated me like a servant, you have humiliated and belittled me at every opportunity." She turned to Lucas, whose face showed a mixture of shock and shame. "And you, Lucas? You say you love me, but where were you when your mother treated me like that? Why did you never stand up for me?" Lucas stammered, searching for words. I didn't want to cause any trouble. I thought it was better this way, for everyone." Clara shook her head, infinite sadness in her eyes. "It was only better for your mother, Lucas. Not for me, and certainly not for us." Dona Matilda, seeing that the situation was getting out of hand, abruptly changed tactics. "My dear Clara," she said in a honeyed voice that sounded false, "you know I didn't really mean all those things. It was just my way of making you stronger. And look, it worked. You have become a strong and independent woman." Clara couldn't help but laugh, a joyless laugh. "No, Dona Matilda. I didn't become strong because of you, but in spite of you. And I'm not here to get your approval or your affection. I came to tell you that I'm leaving, permanently." A dead silence fell over the room. Dona Matilda, for the first time in her life, seemed at a loss for words. Lucas seemed on the verge of collapse. "Leave," he repeated weakly. "But Clara, we're married. We have a life here." Clara shook her head gently. "No, Lucas. We never had a real life together. You chose your mother over me every time you had to take a stand. It's not a marriage, it's a prison." She slowly took off her wedding ring and placed it on the coffee table. "I free you, Lucas. And I free myself too." Dona Matilda, finally coming out of her stupor, exploded. "How dare you? After everything we've done for you, you think your money makes you better than us? You're nothing without this family." Clara looked at her calmly, suddenly realizing how small and pathetic this woman seemed to her. "No, Dona Matilda. I am everything I am despite this family, not because of them. And my money doesn't make me better than you. It's my actions and my choices that will." She walked towards the door, feeling a huge weight lift from her shoulders with each step. Before leaving, she turned around one last time. "I forgive you," she said softly. "Not because you deserve it, but because I don't want to carry the weight of resentment in my new life." And with these words, she went out, leaving behind a silent house, frozen in the stupor of what had just happened. Outside, the sun shone brighter than ever. Clara took a deep breath, savoring the air of freedom. She took out her phone and called Enrique. "It's done," she said simply when he answered. "How are you feeling?" he asked, a note of concern in his voice. Clara thought for a moment before answering. "Freed," she said finally. "Sad, but liberated." "And now?" asked Enrique. Clara looked around, seeing her hometown in a new light. "Now," she said with renewed determination, "it's time to start my new life. It's time to become the person my parents hoped I would become." As she got into the waiting taxi, Clara felt a wave of emotions wash over her. There was sadness for the end of a chapter of her life, apprehension about the unknown that awaited her, but above all, a growing excitement for the future she would build. She knew the path would not be easy. There would be challenges to overcome, skills to acquire, a whole world to discover. But for the first time in her life, Clara felt truly ready to face all of this. The taxi drove away, carrying Clara towards her new future. Behind her, the small house that had been both her refuge and her prison shrank in the rearview mirror. Before her opened a horizon of infinite possibilities. Clara smiled, feeling a new strength growing within her. She was ready to embrace her heritage, honor the memory of her parents, and most importantly, become the best version of herself. The journey was only just beginning, and Clara was finally in control of her own destiny. The weeks following the confrontation with Dona Matilda and Lucas passed like a whirlwind for Clara. Each day brought new discoveries, challenges and opportunities that she would never have imagined before. Installed in a luxurious apartment in the heart of Mexico, Clara was just starting to get used to her new reality. The pristine white walls, designer furniture, and stunning city views were a constant reminder of how far we had come. Yet, despite the comfort that surrounded her, she sometimes felt a pang in her heart, a nostalgia for the simplicity of her previous life. Enrique, faithful to his promise, had become his guide in this new world. Every morning, he arrived with a packed schedule, meetings with Technova executives, crash courses in business management, working sessions with lawyers to manage the legal aspects of his inheritance. "How are you feeling, Clara?" Enrique asked one morning, while they were having coffee on the apartment terrace. Clara thought for a moment before answering. "It's intense. Sometimes I feel like my head is going to explode with all this new information. But at the same time, it's exciting. I feel like I'm discovering a new world every day." Enrique smiles kindly. "That's normal. You've made a huge leap in a very short time. But you're doing admirably well." Clara nodded, grateful for the words of encouragement. "There is so much to learn, to understand. Sometimes I wonder if I will be up to it all." "Your parents didn't doubt it for a second," Enrique replied. "And neither do I. You have natural intelligence and remarkable adaptability, Clara. Don't underestimate yourself." These words warmed Clara's heart. She began to see Enrique not only as a mentor, but also as a friend, perhaps even the father figure she never had. The days went by, filled with meetings, presentations, and decisions to be made. Clara discovered the scale of Technova, a company that touched areas as varied as health, education, and the environment. She was fascinated by the innovations developed by the research teams, technologies that seemed straight out of a science fiction film. But what touched her most was the potential of these technologies to improve people's lives. During a visit to a hospital equipped with Technova's latest innovations, Clara was moved to tears when she saw a paralyzed child take his first steps thanks to an exoskeleton developed by the company. "It's incredible," she whispered to Enrique. "I never imagined that technology could do so much good." Enrique nodded. "That was your parents' vision. They wanted technology to serve humanity, not the other way around." This visit marked a turning point for Clara. She then understood that her legacy was not just about money or power. It was a responsibility, a chance to continue the work of his parents and to make a real difference in the world. Driven by this new motivation, Clara immersed herself with even more enthusiasm in her learning. She spent hours studying financial reports, discussing with engineers, understanding the ethical issues linked to new technologies. But Clara did not forget where she came from. One day, while walking the gleaming corridors of Technova headquarters, she stopped in her tracks, struck by an idea. "Enrique," she said, turning to her mentor who followed her, "I would like to start a new project." Intrigued, Enrique encouraged him to continue. "I want to create a program to help young people from disadvantaged backgrounds access education and training in technology," Clara explained, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "I know what it's like to feel trapped, without opportunities. I want to give others the chance I had." Enrique smiles widely. "That's a great idea, Clara. I'm sure your parents would be proud to see you using your position to help others." From then on, Clara devoted part of her time to this project which was close to her heart. She met education experts, social workers, social entrepreneurs. She visited disadvantaged neighborhoods and listened to the stories of young people who dreamed of a better future. The program, which she named Tech Esperanza, Tech Espoir, quickly took shape. It offered scholarships, business internships, and personalized support to talented but disadvantaged young people. During the official launch of the program, Clara made a speech that moved the audience. "Just a few months ago, I was like many of you. I worked hard, I dreamed of a better life, but I couldn't see how to get there. Today, I stand before you not because I was lucky, but because someone believed in me. This is what I want to offer each of you, a chance, an opportunity to show what you are capable of." The success of Tech Esperanza was immediate. Requests poured in, the media took an interest in the initiative, and soon other companies began to take inspiration from the model. But Clara's life wasn't all work and responsibilities. Encouraged by Enrique, she began to open up to the world, to discover simple pleasures that she had always denied herself before. She took painting lessons, fulfilling a long-repressed childhood dream. Each brushstroke was therapy for her, a way of expressing long-buried emotions. She also traveled, discovering cultures and landscapes that left her amazed. During a trip to Africa to supervise a Technova project, she had a revelation while observing a sunset over the savannah. "It's so beautiful," she whispered to Enrique, who accompanied her. "I never imagined I would see this one day." Enrique looked at her with affection. "This is your world now, Clara. Your heritage has opened doors for you, but it's your heart that guides you through them." These words resonated deeply within Clara. She realized that despite all the changes in her life, she remained true to herself, to her values, to her compassion. The months passed, and Clara flourished in her new role. She was no longer just the heir to Technova, she had become a respected leader, admired for her humanist vision and innovative approach. One evening, while working late in her office, she came across an old photo of her parents. Their smiling faces looked at her, filled with pride and love. Clara felt tears welling up in her eyes. "I hope I make you proud," she whispered, gently stroking the photo. At that moment, his phone vibrated. It was a message from one of Tech Esperanca's first beneficiaries, a bright young girl from a favela in Mexico. She had just been accepted into a prestigious American university to study engineering. Clara smiles through her tears. She then understood that her true heritage was not business or money. It was the ability to change lives, to offer hope, to build a better world. She looked out her office window, watching the city lights twinkle in the night. Mexico, the city where she was born, grew up, suffered and now flourished. She felt filled with immense gratitude for how far she had come and a renewed determination for the future. Clara knew her journey was just beginning. There would still be challenges to face, obstacles to overcome. But she was no longer afraid. She was ready to face the future, strong in her past, guided by the love of her parents and driven by her desire to make a difference in the world. As she turned off the light in her office and prepared to go home, Clara felt at peace. She had found her place in the world, her purpose. And every day was a new opportunity to grow, learn, and give. The new beginning she had made was not an end in itself, but the beginning of an extraordinary adventure. An adventure that, she knew, was only just beginning. Time had flown like the wind, and Clara sometimes found herself looking back, amazed by how far she had come. 2 years had passed since that fateful day when Enrique appeared on her doorstep, changing her life forever. 2 years full of challenges, learning, victories and, sometimes, moments of doubt. That morning, as the sun rose over Mexico City, Clara stood in front of her bathroom mirror, observing her reflection. Physically, she hadn't changed much. His eyes were still so soft, his smile so warm. But there was something different, a confidence, an inner strength that shone through in his eyes. Who would have thought? She muttered to herself, a slight smile on her lips. Her phone vibrated, bringing her back to the present. It was a message from Enrique. "Great day today. Are you ready?" Clara took a deep breath. Yes, it was a great day. Technova would launch its most ambitious project to date, an ethical artificial intelligence program intended to revolutionize healthcare in disadvantaged regions. And it was his project, his baby. As she prepared for the day, Clara reflected on how far she had come. The first few months had been a whirlwind of intensive learning. She had to master in a few weeks what took most people years to learn: business management, finance, the intricacies of cutting-edge technology. There had been moments of discouragement, sleepless nights wondering if she was up to it. But little by little, with Enrique's unwavering support and her own determination, Clara had found her feet. She had learned to navigate the sometimes murky waters of the business world without losing sight of her values and goals. Tech Esperanca, its aid program for disadvantaged young people, had become a model of its kind, replicated in several countries. Seeing these young people flourish, realizing their dreams, was for Clara the greatest reward. Arriving at Technova headquarters, Clara was greeted with unusual excitement. The employees seemed to vibrate with a special energy, aware of the importance of this day. "Hello, Mrs. Alves," her secretary greeted her with a big smile. "Everything is ready for the press conference." The journalists are starting to arrive." Clara thanked her with a nod and headed towards her office. Enrique was already waiting for him there, a file in hand and a look of pride on his face. "Clara," he said when he saw her enter, "I wanted to see you before this all started. How are you feeling?" Clara took a moment to think. "Nervous," she admitted. "But also excited. This project, it's so important." Enrique nodded. "It's okay to be nervous. But you're ready, Clara. You've worked hard to get here." There was a moment of comfortable silence between them, heavy with everything they had been through together. "You know," Clara said finally, "there are days when I wake up and wonder if this is all real. If I'm not going to wake up in my old life, making breakfast for Dona Matilda." Enrique smiled understandingly. "It's real, Clara. You created this reality through your work, your compassion, and your vision. Your parents would be so proud of you." These words touched Clara deep within herself. Her parents. Not a day went by without her thinking about them, without feeling a mixture of gratitude and sadness at the idea of not having known them. "I hope they would," she whispered. A knock on the door interrupted their conversation. It was time for the press conference. Standing in front of a room full of journalists, cameras, and flashes, Clara initially felt intimidated. But when she started talking about their new ethical AI project, her nervousness dissipated, replaced by passion. "What we are launching today," she explained, her voice echoing in the room, "is not just a technological breakthrough. It is a promise. The promise that technology can and must serve of humanity, especially those who need it most." She detailed the project, explaining how this AI would help diagnose diseases in regions where doctors were rare, how it would make it possible to personalize treatments and improve prevention. "But what makes this project unique," she continued, "is its ethics. We have built-in safeguards to ensure that this technology will never be misused, that it will always respect privacy and the dignity of patients." The questions abounded, some technical, others more personal. Clara responded confidently, demonstrating her mastery of the subject and her clear vision for Technova's future. At the end of the conference, as the journalists began to leave, a young reporter approached Clara. "Ms. Alves," she said shyly, "I just wanted to tell you. I benefited from Tech Esperanza 2 years ago. Without this program, I would never have been able to become a journalist. You changed my life." Clara felt her heart swell with emotion. She took the young woman's hands in hers. "No," she said softly, "you changed your life. We just gave you the tools to do it." Back in her office, Clara felt euphoric. The launch was a success, the feedback was positive. But more than anything, meeting this young journalist had reminded her why she was doing all this. Enrique joined her, a big smile on his lips. "You were brilliant, Clara. Really brilliant." Clara smiled back. "Thank you, Enrique. For everything. I wouldn't be here without you." They spent the afternoon discussing the next steps, the challenges ahead. The AI project was just the beginning. Clara had other ideas, other dreams for Technova. As the sun began to set, Clara decided to walk home. She wanted to enjoy the fresh air, to reflect on this emotional day. As she walked through the busy streets of Mexico, she couldn't help but think back to her life before. She wondered what had become of Lucas and Dona Matilda. Despite everything that had happened, she sincerely wished them to have found their way, their happiness. Arriving home, Clara headed towards the terrace of her apartment. The view of the city was breathtaking, with the lights beginning to sparkle in the dusk. She took out of her pocket the old photo of her parents that she always kept with her. "I hope I'm on the right track," she whispered, caressing their smiling faces. His phone vibrated. It was a message from one of the young people at Tech Esperanza, announcing that he had just been accepted into a prestigious university. Clara smiled, her heart overflowing with joy. She then realized that her journey was far from over. Every day brought new challenges, new opportunities to learn and grow. She was no longer the self-effacing and submissive young woman of the past, but she had not arrived at her destination either. She was constantly evolving, always looking for ways to improve, to have a positive impact on the world. The path had not always been easy. There had been moments of doubt, sleepless nights wondering if she was making the right decisions. But each obstacle overcome had made her stronger, more sure of herself. Clara thought about the future, the projects she wanted to develop, the lives she hoped to touch. She knew it wouldn't always be easy, that there would still be challenges to overcome. But she felt ready to face them. She was no longer alone. She had Enrique, of course, but also a dedicated team at Technova, the young people at Tech Esperanza who inspired her every day, and everyone whose lives had been touched by her work. As night fell on Mexico City, Clara felt filled with deep gratitude. Gratitude for the path traveled, for the lessons learned, for the opportunities that opened before her. "The journey continues," she whispered, a smile on her lips. And for the first time in her life, Clara was eager to see what the future had in store for her, ready to embrace each new challenge with courage and determination. She went back to her apartment, turned on her computer, and started working on her next idea. For Clara now knew that every ending was just a new beginning, and that her journey, her true journey, was only just beginning.